Welcome back to Afternoon Express here on S3. It's a masterclass, and we're kicking this baking masterclass off with the very basics of baking, where it all begins. I mean, I'm talking about the ingredients to put in the cake in the oven. Where do we start? That's the big question, but we've got the person with the answers here with us in studio. Palesa, we're in for a lesson, right?
Absolutely, and we are focusing and celebrating all things cake. We wanted to make sure you have all the tips and tricks that you need to make baking super simple, super easy, and absolutely delicious.
Yep. Where do we start, Anma? Where does it begin?
So baking a cake starts with preparation.
Okay.
If you're prepared for when you're going to bake a cake, nothing can go wrong because everything is already weighed out, everything you need is done. Number one thing is always preheat your oven. So I already have the oven on at 165. I bake at a bit of a lower temperature.
Why?
I prefer baking at a little bit of a lower temperature because it results in a softer sponge.
Oh, wow.
So less crusty and less colored. You're always trying to get...
That is interesting because a lot of the time, all we hear is the golden rule, 180.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps saying 180, 180.
Yeah.
But you actually bake on 165.
165.
I love that. Pro tip.
180 is nothing wrong with 180.
Yeah.
You'll just have to reduce the baking time a little bit.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So you'll see I already have my dry ingredients. This is my vanilla buttermilk cake.
Oh, my word.
Yes, it's made with buttermilk, and another great substitution for that, for us in South Africa, is to use amasi. If you can sift these two together for me, this is normal cake flour and caster sugar. Very important to sieve your ingredients. I find over the years with flour, you often find little husks and little lumps and things that you don't want. So always a great idea to start with sieving your ingredients. And then I've got all the wet ingredients, which is the vinegar, vanilla, the eggs, some canola oil, and the buttermilk. If you can just pop them all in this bowl and give it a little stir.
Okay, mens, kat jy stress my bietjie.
No stress.
Hoekom het ons asyn en die koek?
So, because the dry ingredients include bicarb, the vinegar acts as the raising, that is what's going to activate the rise of the sponge.
It's a science, eh?
Yes.
I love that.
So, I'm going to prepare my tins.
Okay, you prepare the tin.
Use your little balloon whisk and just give it a little whisk, making sure that the eggs break up.
Gotcha.
So, when it comes to lining tins, I use multiple tins because I prefer baking thinner sponges rather than baking a thick sponge, which takes longer to bake, which gives it a thicker crust, and also it takes longer to cool. So if you already divide your batter into your tins, this will eventually become a 4-layer cake, like this little example. So there's 4 layers of sponge, so we're going to bake 4 separate layers.
I've got you. Now, I can already smell that you've sprayed some non-stick...
Yes. Always prepare with a bit of non-stick spray, just to make sure, because there's nothing worse than baking a sponge and then it doesn't come out. So can you imagine?
No, you don't want that.
And then also the bottom, I line with some greaseproof paper rings. These are ones that you can buy at the baking store very easily in big packs, but another easy way of doing it, so I'm just going to flick these in the bottom. The edges doesn't matter because we've sprayed that, so I don't necessarily line the sides, but you can definitely do that. Then I use a tin and I just use a pen. So here I've got the same paper, but it's folded multiple times.
Gotcha.
Draw a little circle. And then once you cut that, you're already going to have 4 perfect circles.
A pro tip. Here we are. I mean,
this is something you can do in advance and cut many. I mean, my standard celebration cake is that size. I make many of them every day in the bakery. So we just have hundreds of these pre-cut.
I'm not going to the shop. I'm coming to your bakery.
That's perfectly That's perfectly mixed.
Tell me about the whisking technique, please, Anma, because even people who have baked many cakes before sometimes do struggle. Or maybe not so much struggle, but get it wrong. What is the perfect way?
And is there such a thing as over
Definitely. So,
because we don't want to over-mix as well.
You don't want to over-mix because at the end of the day, we're dealing with flour, which is a gluten product. You can just pop that on the side.
Am I doing it right?
That's perfectly, and it doesn't have to whip up. We're not trying to incorporate air. So if everything's mixed and you can see the eggs are broken up, this is perfect. So I'm going to take this from you.
Thank you. Okay, so this is going on, and you can go on to afternoonexpress.co.za if you want to get your hands on the recipe. It is all there, all of the things you're going to need. Anma has put it all together for us. Let's go.
So very easily, this is a no-fuss recipe, no creaming butter and sugar and making lots of mess. The wet ingredients go straight in with the dry ones. I mean, you don't even have to incorporate them separately in a bowl. I like doing it, but I mean, if you're in a hurry, you can just throw the wet
Baking a
ingredients
cake in a
straight
hurry
into.
because you forgot. Yeah, it does happen. How many times have you found yourself waking up and you remember it's a friend's birthday,
Exactly.
a colleague's birthday, and you can just put this together quickly?
Exactly. It's very quick, it's very easy, and it only bakes for 25 minutes. I don't just throw the batter in by eye, because you want it when you bake your sponge, you want it to be even. Because it's no use one sponge is 10 centimeters thick, one is... So I do a really simple trick. I know my batter weighs 1.4 kgs because I've placed it on the scale and I've done it a million times. But this batter weighs 1.4 kgs, and I do that by weighing the bowl beforehand. I know what the bowl weighs, then you weigh it again. This is 1.4.
Yeah, well, mathematics, then you divide and multiply by equations.
I have 4 tins, so I'm going to do 350 grams per tin. So we actually do this on a scale, and we pop our little tin on the scale, zero it, and then I'm going to pour in 350 grams into each tin. So then, so then when you bake, it's going to be
even.
Perfect and even. I mean, on our side, I can already see the numbers tallying up on the scale. It's absolutely phenomenal, the way in which you know your work, girl. So it's just that simple, making sure that there are 4 layers, 350 per each tin.
Yes, and you can do this with any, I mean, it doesn't have to be the recipe from the book. Any baking, this is a great tip to even things out. For this recipe, it's 25 minutes at 165. But yeah, so it's all indicated in the book exactly how long and also what the change in time would be if you change this to cupcakes.
I'm going to call this the Baking Bible, and it's brought to you by Anma here on Afternoon Express. Please get the recipe, afternoonexpress.co.za. Lots of baking inspiration on there, and we'll see you in just a bit.